When I was younger, I never cared about character design. I only really cared about the stories and wacky hijinks that they got into. When I was hitting the ages of around 10 to 12, I started to wonder about character design. The first thing to probably ignite this curiosity of character design was probably none other than Darth Vader. Let's get on with the video. Alright, Darth Vader's one of those characters you come out the womb already knowing who he is. You know he's Luke's father, spoiler, and you know he aura forms like crazy. But maybe on some random night or on a long drive you think about, how did they design him? How do you design any villain? Superheroes come easy, they're bombastic, they're bright, they're strong. But how do you design a villain? And that's what I'm going to answer for this video. I think I'm going to separate this video into 3 different parts, each part covering a different villain from a completely different franchise. But first, let's start it off with Star Wars, the thing you probably came for. And if you didn't, I'll have some time codes at the top right here to show you where you should skip to if you want a different design coverage. Alright, moving on from that, let's actually get into the schmeat of the video. To start with, we need to talk about the person who is vital to the creation of Star Wars, Ralph McQuarrie. I'm hoping I'm saying that right because his name looks a little weird, but I think that's how you say it. Ralph McQuarrie was the one who made the concept art for Darth Vader and for most of Star Wars. There's actually a book of his art, which I really want to get, and I hope I get someday. But just looking at it, it's really beautiful. Like, I'll put some C-3PO stuff, I'll put some concept art for Chewbacca, and especially Darth Vader, which you probably saw at the beginning of the video. But his art for Darth Vader was a lot more exaggerated than what we have now. The mask had a snout and looked more buggy and kind of looked like Darth Vader's Stewie from the Family Guy thing. I'll show a side by side. Like, these guys look exactly the same almost. Ralph McQuarrie's art gives off a retrofuturism kind of vibe, having more paneling and all the technology that doesn't do anything, while still being smooth and sleek. And there is homage to his artwork in official Star Wars media. For example, Star Wars Rebels. His design is definitely heavily inspired by Ralph McQuarrie's art. He looks a lot taller and thinner, and I love the lightsaber looks in this show. Definitely the most standout thing is his face overall. Everything else looks exactly like what we have nowadays. But let me be real though, the Anakin in that show was terrible, and the Yoda too. God, those designs just sucked and were terrifying. Some of the early sketchwork of Darth Vader's design looks almost ghostly, like he looks fast. It's hard to explain, but these images on screen give off like a more of like the Grim Reaper or death look. So much of Darth Vader's aura and sauce just can be attributed to McQuarrie's artwork. But I will say, drawing a design is one thing, but trying to create something real from that drawing is way harder. Brian Muir actually sculpted the helmet and the armor pieces for Darth Vader. He did this by using life-size casts of David Prowse, the actor for Darth Vader. Not the voice actor, but it's crazy because he sculpted it all by hand, which does lead to some imperfections like the helmet. It's actually asymmetrical in Episode 4, A New Hope. I kind of like it though because I think George Lucas explains it in a way where it's like, it's because of how much history and damage Darth Vader has gone through is why the helmet is so beat up. I'm sorry, I was going off on a tangent there for some reason, but John Malone was the costume designer for Darth Vader, so he's the person who designed the boots, the pants, the undershirt, the gloves, all of that. Oh, and he also worked closely with Muir when designing the costume. I guess I should also mention that Darth Vader's helmet was inspired by samurai headgear. But John Malone and Ron Beck, they really mashed together different times and ages to create Darth Vader. With a Nazi helmet, a gas mask, a biker's suit, and a monk's cloak. Now these items separated, you could not see how these would be connected at all, but thinking about it, like if you imagine this in your brain, you can see like a weird vision of Darth Vader. Like it's almost like a vague dream of him. And for the last part of this section of the video, Vader's suit was actually all black at some point, but it was too black, like you couldn't see it on camera. So that's why it has the silver accents and like red and green buttons and stuff, which can be blue sometimes, which is weird. But now it's time to move on to his actual suit. I believe I've already mentioned this, but just in case, I'm gonna use A New Hope's design, Rogue One, and Obi-Wan Kenobi as the 3 main designs I talk about. And if you don't agree with me using those suits as like the 3 bases for Darth Vader, click off the video, I guess, I don't know. hitting Jordan's signature shimmy to get away from what I just said earlier. A New Hope's helmet is just amazing. Like, this genuinely looks like it's been through, like, multiple battles. I hope I have pictures on screen. I gotta remember to do that, but I think the asymmetries really lend to its design, to its menace, to its absolute darkness. Which I should mention, it has red lenses if you didn't know. I think the main thing I want to talk about for this helmet is probably its features. It clearly has a spot for its mouth, its nose, and its eyes, but it's like so devoid of humanity. Where the nose would be is like a simple little metal plate. Where the mouth would be is instead replaced with grates and a cage-like filter. And the eyes are huge but just have no life behind them. Sometimes you're lucky and get to see the person inside of it if the lighting is just right. The suit's sharp edges just further away from a more natural and organic look, while also having nothing round but curves that lead to sharp edges that are precise yet rugged at the same time. It's clearly a face of something, but it's robotic, it's steel, it's metal. The only thing that truly does give away that there's a person behind this is the rest of the suit. And even while looking at the body, there's barely anything to accentuate that there's a person underneath this. Of course, he has a belt, which I actually think is the most human thing of all. I'd say the second thing is probably the armor and the chest plate, because lore-wise, the chest piece actually helps him breathe, but most people probably don't know that. And another thing to add on to the chest piece is it's the only thing to accentuate color in this suit. I guess you can include the belt, but the main thing you see is the chest. It's in the center of the body. And with the cape draped over his chest, it muddles his figure. It makes him even more featureless. I can imagine him at night atop a hill, and all you see is a ghostly apparition with a head that can be defined so easily yet so bland, with only one thing that you can hear from it: breathing. Sorry, I got a little intense in there for a second, but we gotta keep moving. I've used 6 takes trying to describe the body of the suit, but it's just, there's nothing really to talk about. You can talk about the texturing, like the ribbing of the fabric, but overall the suit just looks blank almost, except for the armoring, which of course I've accentuated the whole time throughout this whole video so far, and I believe it's on purpose. The only things we see in Star Wars that are like this bland and have like this little design are the droids. Think about it. And I don't mean like the droids that like R2-D2 or C-3PO. I mean like the separatist droids. Here, I'm gonna throw some droids for example. But look at all these. They're all so smooth and bland. They all lack personality. And I think that's what the suit is going for. It's something that lacks personality, yet it's a shape you always remember. Kind of like Michael Myers, the original shape. It always just looks so basic what he's wearing, a Halloween mask and a mechanic's jumpsuit. And I feel that's a pretty good way of understanding how this suit was designed. Of course there's more to that, like how most of his design was based off military ranks and historic clothing. And I think my outlook on the suit is a pretty good one. Even if it's not right, it's still at least a little interesting. And if you don't agree with me, you can put your own opinion in the comments. But that's all I have to say about Darth Vader. Let's move on to the next person. Skeletor. A simple design, but there's plenty of gold here. Whew, the 40-year-olds are going to be pissed at me, but I'm going to be using his modern movie design. Don't worry though, I will be talking about his old show design. But if you can get past that decision, let's move on to the... Now there really isn't a lot going on with this design, which sounds bad, but I think it wraps around to being actually good again. Because when Masters of the Universe was created, it was because Mattel, the toy company, had actually missed out on the Star Wars IP. So they took their chances with this guy named Mark Taylor, and he was the concept artist for He-Man, and Roger Sweet, who made up the name He-Man and created the prototypes for it, and it was a hit. You know, they were selling toys, they had a TV show, and it was the bomb. But you know, like all good things, it slowly declined, and they had a movie, which is awesome. You have to see it. You have to see the movie, please. I don't want that movie to flop. All the actors are good, the entire plot is good. Jared Leto's in it. I'm sorry he's in it. but there's nothing you can do. You gotta watch it. Just watch it, please. What was I talking about? Skeletor's design, that's what it was. The reason why I want to talk about the movie's design more than the cartoon is because I think it differentiates itself from He-Man a lot more in the live action. Of course, in the cartoon, it's obvious he has a skull for a face, you know? And in the movie, they even say that same thing where they're like, oh, I have a skull for a face. Of course I'm bad. But I think the way his body looks like kind of like muscle strands, I think that makes it more clear that this is the bad guy. I also think his red glowing eyes are a nice accent to his design. It makes his skull for a face look alive, but in an obvious evil way. His design being so obviously evil lends himself to being a good design, because it's easy to understand. It's not like emotionally complex, it's not creatively complex, it's just a kid can understand that he's evil. And sometimes your design just needs to be like that. It just needs to be, oh, this guy's evil. It doesn't need to be like overcomplicated, just sometimes the best way to go is just showing it off. But if you want to be more subtle, you could always go with the approach of having your villain have a girlfriend named Evelyn. Evil Lynn. I mean, they have a guy named He-Man, so what am I complaining about? This is all what I really have to talk about his design. It's nothing crazy, it's just so simple, so easy to understand, and I think that's what's perfect about it. You know, I wanted to use Skeletor as like kind of a way to break up that intense sting from Vader. I guess we can like insert his laugh like right here.
Remember when I've had a more pleasant day?
That's his laugh? Oh, what the let's just move on to Green Goblin's suit. You know what, these textings cutting me off kind of look like a bistro like logo or something, or like I don't know. Let's just talk about him. The Goblin's design is a timely one. Don't worry, I'll be using the comic version for this one. You can probably guess that the dynamic duo, Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, created the Green Goblin. He first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man number 14. And a little spoiler warning, Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin. And Harry becomes him too later. And there's also the Hobgoblin, which is a completely different guy, but let's not get into this. Alright, the man himself, Green Goblin. The 13th century shoes with the Prada handbag, Link's hat but dyed purple. What else can I say? Okay, I have plenty to say. I don't know if you'll agree with me on this take, but his design invokes something of a superhero in my opinion. If you had forgotten what superheroes looked like and you were given a description of them, and you didn't see his face or like the pumpkin bomb, would you assume this guy was a superhero? Some of you may say no, probably because he's green and purple, and those are iconically evil colors, even though in my opinion, they mesh pretty well together, I'm not gonna lie, he pulls off that fit. But there's definitely clear outliers that makes him a villain. He's got scales on his arms for God's sakes. He has peasant shoes, but what else should I say? And just seeing his face makes it so much more clear that he's a villain. It looks all droopy, like it's melting, while his ears are sharp. The purple hat, it's an evil hat. You know, his pumpkin bombs, which I think this might be the only character I'll talk about the technology, because that's what he really relies on. I mean, look at this guy on this hang glider, on the Goblin glider. Look at him, bro. He's got aura. He's aura farming. Also, he's like never not on this thing at the same time. Like, I think there's only like a couple times he gets off of it. I will say this design is definitely a pillar of villain design in my opinion. But the Hobgoblin is such a massive improvement to this design. I want to include it, and I think I will. I mean, because like the Green Goblin design, it doesn't got much to offer, but I feel like it's a great balance between looking like a hero while still looking like a villain. The scales obviously give it this disgusting kind of reptilian look. The pointy ears give it like a sharpness to it. Like the droopy, melty face, like kind of freaks you out. The long nose, everything about it kind of just gives you a strange vibe. The Goblin is in it for the fun, while the Hobgoblin is in it for the business. And it's crazy how just changing the color palette completely is such a massive improvement, or such a massive departure from what it originally looked like. Him having a hood too also adds to this just creep factor. You never see his face, you only see his like eyes glowing. And the times you do see his face, it's a lot more monstrous. He has hands that are like claws, which is also kind of crazy. And he just looks more rugged compared to the clean cut Green Goblin. I do really want to collect this Spider-Man run of the Hobgoblin. I know how it goes and I know how it ends, but I would love to just read the story completely without like having a summarized version. Which is crazy, yeah, but let's end the video now, okay? Okay, from what we've seen, what can we learn? Clearly, a good villain design is tied to its humanity. The farther away, the better, but it still has to be within the bubble of looking like a human or resembling a person. It at least has to have some personality traits. Okay, next is what idea you want to portray. Do you want it to be obvious that this is a villain? Or do you want to be more convoluted like Darth Vader, where you can't tell if there's an actual person under the suit without hearing their voice or breathing? Or you can do a mix of both. Either lean into the more happy side, like more bombastic, or the more creepy and shadowy side. And another thing that you should know is that, do you want this villain to be a sign for something like fear, or do you just want him to be a villain? Like, you just want him to antagonize whatever he's after? Do you just want him to cause pain, or do you want him to leave a mark on where he's been? I think what I've said should all be taken in consideration when designing a villain. This is all my own opinion and thought though, so if you didn't agree with anything, that's fair. If you did agree with some stuff, that's pretty sweet for me. But yeah, I think that's about it. I don't really have anything else to talk about, so like and subscribe. I guess I'll press the hype button or something. I don't know what that does. I'll probably do a video on that next actually. What the hell is the hype button? Bye.